I love the SEGA Genesis. The SEGA Genesis is a phenomenal system. I remember Christmas of 1993 when I got my SEGA Genesis with Sonic 2 packed in, ripping off the Christmas wrapping and seeing this big beautiful box with Sonic 2 in it, the Genesis Model 2. I instantly fell in love and I played it for hours and hours and hours. And that was pretty much an important time in my video gaming life. You can actually see here, I have a Genesis Model 2 that was the exact same one I got for Christmas. This isn't the same one, I repurchased it, but it is a boxed one that comes with Sonic 2, and it's very sentimental to me. It was a very important part of my video game life. It was my first brand new system, as my NES was a hand-me-down from my uncle. And while I love the SEGA Genesis, I hate when people artificially inflate the price of video games. Because you see it all the time. You see these random people who have no idea what they have and they're trying to sell Super Mario Brothers for like $100 on the NES. And you have to think to yourself, why do people think this? Is it because the item itself is old? I say no, it's because there are people out there that feed into this. There are people and websites and multimedia outlets that give people these false impressions of how much their stuff is worth, when in actuality, it's worth nowhere near that amount. And today I have to talk about an article that my buddy Joel from Media Glitch showed me. Media Glitch just hit 5,000 subscribers. It's an excellent channel. Make sure you guys check it out. Link is in the description down below, like TV quality stuff, really good stuff. But Joel shared this article on Twitter and I literally was reading it and I wanted to punch my phone, but I couldn't think of a good way to punch my phone. But then as I was sitting here making this video, I thought of a good way to punch my phone. Oh God. So today we're going to talk about definition.org's article, where it states that your SEGA Genesis could be worth $2,000. $2,000 for a Genesis! What is wrong with people? I don't like this. Why do people do this? So before making this video, I wanted to figure out who definition.org was, because I had never heard of them, and you've probably never heard of them. So I wanted to make sure they were a big website, a reputable website. So doing some research, I found out that they are within the top 7,000 of most visited websites worldwide. And that's a huge number when you think about how many different types of websites there are out there, from, kitty and puppy pictures to nude women and stuff like that. So like 7,000 is a big number. If you're in the top 7,000 of YouTube, you have like 2 Ferraris and like a multi-million-dollar mansion. You're doing very well for yourself. So obviously this is a highly visited website. And this article was not a community submission. This article was written by a staff member. It has an official link and it is called the 20 Older Toys with Insane Value, written by Raci de los Santos. I like to roll my R's. I grew up around Puerto Ricans. I will roll my R whenever I can. So the number 10 item on the list, as I scrolled through it, ended up being the SEGA Genesis. Now, before getting to the SEGA Genesis, I saw things like Cabbage Patch Kids and Pokemon cards and Monopoly, and I don't know anything about that. I don't know the values of those things. So as I'm reading it, I'm looking at it like a consumer would read about the SEGA Genesis. I have no knowledge of this. Are these things really worth this much money? It seemed crazy to me. And when we come across the number 10 item, it is the SEGA Genesis console. Now let's look at this together, shall we? Am I going to be petty? Am I going to nitpick? Oh, you bet your ass I am. So we have a picture of a Mega Drive. That's a Mega Drive. That's not a SEGA Genesis, that is a Mega Drive. It's like putting up a picture of a Famicom and saying it's an NES. It is different. It has a different value. It was released in a different market. Are we talking about a Mega Drive or are we talking about a Genesis? I am confused. And obviously, Raci was very busy when they were writing this article because they couldn't actually find a SEGA Genesis. They probably just typed in Sega, found the first picture that popped up on Wikipedia, because actually this is a picture from Wikipedia as stated in the source, and just put it up with the article. So I'm not sure if we're talking about the Genesis or the Mega Drive now, but let's read on, shall we? If you happen to come across your old SEGA Genesis game system, I guess we're back to the SEGA Genesis, one day, do not throw it away. Is that a common thing that happens when you find something old, you just throw it away? Like, I don't throw away old stuff. I actually look at it to see what it is. It's not like an old pair of underwear or something. It's something of value, potentially. It is an old video game, an old movie, an old CD, something to reminisce about from when you were younger. Like, why are we just throwing away all these things? Why not see if you have a friend who collects old movies or old video game systems in this case? Or, even sell it. And I guess that's what the point of this article is, because you should hold on to it, right? Let's see what Raci has to say about that. Instead, check to see if it still works. And if it does, hit the internet with it, because you could be looking to make up to $2,000 for it. $2,000 for a SEGA Genesis. On what planet are we living on? Let's check out the source of the article, shall we? Because certainly, if you're writing an article, you have to have a source. As a writer for Nintendo Enthusiast and occasionally Destructoid, I always like to source stuff if I'm doing something news related or something where I'm making a bold claim. Unless it is a personal piece, you have to have a source. So let's see what the source is for this. There's no source. There's no source. You couldn't even link, Rassi, you could not even link something that shows where a SEGA Genesis or Mega Drive, because you obviously don't know the difference, sold for $2,000. There's no source. It's literally you just throwing out an arbitrary number that nobody can verify and then saying this is fact. This is a 100% fact, so much and such that I don't need a source. Are you out of your mind? Are you out of your mind, definition.org? Who is the proofer for this? Who is the editor-in-chief of this website that allows pointless dribble with no context and no real sourcing to just go live? You're a top 7,000 website. You make an impact on people. If somebody reads this and has a SEGA Genesis sitting around their house, they're gonna think that it could be worth up to $2,000 all of a sudden. Why? Because you lied to these people. Nobody is buying a SEGA Genesis for $2,000. You know how much I paid for this off of eBay? $45 shipped, boxed with Sonic 2, all cables, and a controller. You picked literally the cheapest Sega console there is to artificially inflate it to $2,000. The Master System sells for what, $80 plus? The Saturn is $60 plus. The Dreamcast is $50 plus. So you picked the Genesis, which commonly goes for $40 and under. There are people who cannot get rid of Genesis models right now, and said that it was worth $2,000. Do you, Rassi, do you have a SEGA Genesis? Are you sitting on a SEGA Genesis and you want to sell it because definition.org isn't paying you enough? I get it now. You're trying to get $20 or $2,000 for your SEGA Genesis because you currently have it up on eBay. So you're going to tell people, hey, you should look at this article that someone for definition.org wrote that says that this Genesis is worth $2,000. I'll cut you a deal and give it to you for $1,500. Like, that's the only logic I can think of here. There is nowhere on the internet where a Genesis is worth $2,000. You could go on eBay, you could go on anything. You could go on your local Facebook trading group and see Genesis is overpriced at like $200, but not $2,000. And this really makes me mad because, like I said, this is a big website, a top 7,000 website. So if, somebody who doesn't know anything about video games, who maybe has, a collection of old stuff in their attic or in their basement or in their garage, sees something like this, they're going to automatically think that they have gold. And, it's disingenuous to the person who then tries to sell their Genesis for $2,000 and gets laughed out of the world. Literally, they're going to fall off the world because nobody's going to pay $2,000 for a SEGA Genesis. So, Rassi and definition.org, you are taking a big L on this. This is one of the worst things I've ever read. There's no sourcing. You used the wrong picture and showed a Mega Drive instead of a Genesis, and all of your other stuff is probably artificially inflated too. I don't want you guys to look at the article, unfortunately, because it's one of those articles where there's 20 different things and you have to click each time to get each individual item. So they're getting ad revenue. So I suggest you guys don't visit this article and don't visit these people and give them ad revenue. Instead, just remember things like this exist. Remember when you see video games overpriced, it's because of people like this. Because people like this exist who like to talk about video games, who don't know anything about video games, and artificially inflate stuff based on nothing. No source, nothing. And that really angers me. So I wanted to just bring this to your guys' attention because I think it's hilarious that people out there just write for big websites and probably got paid for this, and it's just rubbish. It's absolute rubbish and just blah and stupid. Stupid. So do you think your Genesis is worth $2,000? If you do, you're probably not a subscriber of this channel because RGT85 keeps his people in the know. If you're an RGT85 watcher, you are a smart person. And yeah, so let me know what you think about this article, what other instances you've seen where people just artificially inflate video game prices. And thank you for checking out this video. Like I said, if you're new here, subscribe to the channel. Make sure you hit that like button, start a little discussion down in the comments section, and I will catch you guys next time. And if you ever see anything like this with a big website artificially inflating stuff, send it to me. send it to the Facebook page, send it to Twitter, send it to my email. I will cover this. I will rip these people apart, and I will let people know that no, your Genesis is not worth $2 grand. So get over it. Later.